right, today, raising boys. It is not easy in today's world to raise sons who are confident, resilient, and good. We hear stories all the time about lives destroyed by bullying, suicide, hazing, sexual assault, drugs, and alcohol. So what's going on with our boys today, and what can we do to make sure that they grow up to be successful, happy, and helpful?
Yes, Dr. John Duffy is a clinical psychologist who specializes in parenting, families, and relationships. He's also a best-selling author, speaker, and podcaster, and a really good person to slide right in.
You're just so excited, right, to join us?
So excited that I was here before I was supposed to be here.
See, that's
perfect. How
That's
happy I am to
perfect.
be here.
We love that.
Molly and I both have sons.
Yes.
And JoJo's how old, Joseph?
15.
15, okay, and Billy is 12.
Got it?
How, that age, is there a special
trick?
Yeah, I was just going to say, what are the tools and tricks for working with adolescents?
No, I love your boys' ages because there's space here. There's space and there's time to make an impact. So boys are confused about, like, you know, who am I? How do I make an impact? And there are these diversions available to them in the guise of video games and their phones and, you know, making ridiculous memes and things. What they miss out.
Do you know our kids?
I know a lot of kids in that age range. What they miss out on too often is some kind of activity outside of school that makes them feel competent, resilient, strong. And I'm talking about a sport, a group, a club, a play, a job, something where there's usually another adult involved who is drawing out of them something they didn't know was there, some strength, some skill, some emotional intelligence that they didn't know was present. And when that happens, boys can fly. If that fails to happen, boys often end up kind of basement dwelling and unsure of themselves perennially. And it's a really anxiety-provoking way to go through those high school years especially.
Right.
I don't think video games help. My son is obsessed with Fortnite right now. We've talked about it here on the show. A lot of kids are obsessed with it. We've talked about limiting screen time and all those kinds of things, and talked about it on the show. But video games are a really easy distraction if you have all that going on in your life. It's a way to just tune out, I think. So that's definitely an issue. Masculinity, I feel like, the definition of it, or what we expect, or how we see it, has changed over the years. Have you seen that transformation or transition?
Yeah, I think this is a really difficult thing in between fathers and sons in particular, because the old school masculinity that I grew up in was this stiff upper lip, you know, you're tough, right? Now, boys these days, and I'm not sure if your boys fit this mold, but the boys I work with are far more emotionally astute, and they're sensitive, they're kind, they have a lot of different skills and aptitudes that we didn't have a generation ago that I think are real positives, but they don't fit in the traditional mold of masculinity. And so there's a little bit of this feeling like, I'm lost. I'm not sure where the value is in this thing that I possess.
Sort of this disconnect,
How can we help them be okay with that?
Yeah. So I think part of it is recognizing that as a strength. There's a writer named Brene Brown who talks about vulnerability.
I love her.
Right? We love her because she talks about, she points out the strength of vulnerability. And what I find is I work with teenage girls who read Brene, but I don't work with any teenage boys who do, and yet the core concept is the same, right? You know, vulnerability is strength, and if boys are willing to be more vulnerable, which they are now, they're stronger, but a lot of boys don't recognize that. And so they fall into what looks like lazy behaviors because they don't know what really they're doing that's bringing value.
I'm so glad you brought that up, that what looks like lazy behavior. It's sort of a preoccupation. I see it as, in a lot of kids, it's sort of like an opting out or a tuning out. So it might be of conversations with relatives, grandparents, parents. It could be opting out of school, not putting forth their best effort at school. It could be opting out of homework, opting out of hanging out with friends, or even opting out of sports that maybe they used to love. Maybe they're not as good at it either. And should they just participate? Things like that.
So, and you can feel it. You can feel it when a boy opts out because it tends to be not just one of those things, but maybe nearly all of them, right? There might be one or two things that he shows up for, but by and large, he opts out. Like if he can get to his room and play Fortnite or look at his phone or something like that, avoid homework, avoid family, he's going to do that. And that opting out looks like, my kid's just lazy, I've got to get him motivated, you know? But really what we have to do is understand emotionally, what is my son going through? So this is a mandate for parents.
Trying to figure out what's happening.
Yeah, that unconditional love, unconditional positive regard, and recognizing what looks like there's something terrible happening here might be an indication that there's something good happening here that I am failing to recognize as a parent.
Like what?
Like my son is actually kind, sensitive, has a skill set that we're just not doing a great job of tapping, right? So we have to think about that redefinition of masculinity and apply it to our boys today and recognize, wow, you've got a lot of strengths and you're a really smart, capable guy and you're competent, but we need to show you that. We need to provide
get you off Fortnite and start coding.
At least sometimes. At least sometimes.
This is such a great topic, and we ran out of time. I feel like we could do, honestly, a whole show on it. This is a fantastic thing to talk about. You actually have already, or you're about to do a podcast about raising boys.
Yes.
Right,
yes.
with your wife.
Yep.
And you guys have raised a son.
We have.
Okay. Go to this website. It's drjohnduffy.com. He's got fabulous podcasts, blogs, and a whole lot more if you go there. It's called Better, and it's Dr. John Duffy along with his wife, Julie, which is fantastic.
And a son that's not a basement dweller.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much.